watching Fox 25 Morning News.
7:48 now, and here's Gene.
Scum, sleaze, cheater. We've all have our certain terms and names we use to describe those who are unfaithful in their marriage, and there's been a lot of that going on, from Tiger Woods to John Edwards to former New York Governor Eliot Spitzer, just to name a few. Yet while one partner is being labeled a villain, the other is a victim. However, our next guest tells us it may not be that simple. Joining us this morning to talk about the hidden drivers behind infidelity is psychotherapist, coach, and author of the international bestseller Soulmate, Master the Art of Aloneness and Transform Your Life. It's Lauren Mackler back with us this morning. Lauren, great to see you again.
Nice to be here, Jim.
So let me see if I have this right. The knee-jerk reaction that the cheating spouse may actually be a loser, a scumbag, all the other things we mentioned there, may actually be a rush to judgment in some cases.
Yeah, it's way more complex than just the victim and the villain, and people don't realize that. And people focus in on the cheater and the bad behavior, and everybody feels really bad for the one that's been cheated upon. But you have to look at what's really going on behind the scenes, because it's not just that black and white.
What are some of the things the victim of a cheating spouse may be doing to send them outside the marriage?
Well, let me backtrack and say, to understand really what's driving infidelity, you have to go back, way back. And that is, both partners are growing up in a family, and when we're born, we're very whole, integrated human beings. We have innate personality traits, we have access to all of our emotions, we can express ourselves, and then depending on, we also are born with a very intact self-esteem. So we're very whole, what I call whole. We come into this thing called a family, and the life conditioning process begins. And depending what's going on in that family, what our role was, what the role modeling was, the circumstances, the environment, all those things shape who we become and develop what I call our conditioned self.
If you get married and you take that vow to forsake all others, shouldn't you be held to that? Shouldn't you hold yourself to that, regardless of what other subconscious or other things that may have affected you when you become an adult?
Well, sure. I mean, most people don't get married with the idea of, okay, well, we'll see how this works out. We come into marriage, most of us, with the intention that we love this person, we want to be loyal, we want to be faithful, we want to spend the rest of our lives with that person. But these unconscious drivers, the way that we think and behave on autopilot, which is always rooted in the family growing up, we start inevitably playing out those patterns that we learn in our families growing up, replicating the role, the habitual behaviors in our adult relationship. And most people grew up in families that were less healthy, they're more dysfunctional. So the patterns that we bring into these relationships ultimately lead to their demise.
So if you talk about someone like Tiger Woods, who had a domineering dad who was very much a part of his life, and Tiger was really a child star from the age of 6 on up, something like that could affect the behavior we're seeing from him today in his relationship with his wife.
Absolutely, because he was locked into a role of this golden boy and was not able to express other parts of himself. When we can't express parts that they go underground, doesn't mean they go away, but they start to eke out in other kinds of ways, and in his case, kind of acting out sort of what we'll call the dark side, but it's not really a dark side, it's just other parts of him. And he's in this relationship where he's got this dual life. Now the partner, his wife, has a play in that if somebody is having multiple relationships over a period of time, and you are oblivious to it, you either don't want to see it, or you've got something else going on but it's a culmination of the patterns that both people bring into the relationship. I'm not condoning that behavior. Okay, it's very injurious, it's very painful. But both partners co-create a relationship.
So you're saying that Elin may be responsible in some way for what's going on with Tiger, or at least had her head in the sand when she...
Well, when I say responsible, not in the sense of anything deliberate, but she's playing out whatever role she has in the relationship. He's playing out his role. And so, you know, those unconscious patterns, let's say that her role is to be the supporter and the nurturer and the caretaker, and he's the achiever, he's out there, you know, providing for the family. They're both locked into a role, and in the relationship, they're not free to express other parts of themselves.
Are you buying his sexual addiction thing? It seems like a convenient thing that all of a sudden you get busted running around with all these different women, and you're a sex addict, where if he was a single guy and doing this, that wouldn't even be in the equation.
Well, first of all, sexual addition is a symptom. Everybody's focused on addiction as the problem. So
it's a symptom, not a disease.
I don't look at it as a disease. It's a habitual pattern of behavior that he got into that is driven by other kinds of factors. So the sexual addiction, if you just look at that and treat the addiction, and if it's all about his part and just about his addiction and not about what is going on with her, what's going on in that relationship that led to the deterioration of the marriage, then you're going to just, ultimately, you're not going to fix it, because he's going to end up feeling under the microscope all the time, mistrusted. She's going to feel vigilant. Is he cheating? What's going on? You have to really bring both partners into the work.
But it can be saved, because a lot of people look at Elin and say, what is she doing? Staying with this guy? Why would you stay with him? And you're saying that trust can be rebuilt, and a marriage that suffers through this type of thing, it can be saved.
Except you have to do a very specific kind of work. And the work that I do when I'm working with couples that have gone through an infidelity is I bring both partners into the work to look at what both their roles were in the relationship, what both of their belief systems are, their habitual patterns of behavior, and the roles that they have adopted growing up that they're playing out in the relationship. And looking at which of those patterns are contaminating the relationship, and the work that both of them need to do to move from what I call an unconscious relationship that's pretty much driven by both of their conditioned selves from childhood versus who they both really are and the kind of relationship that they want to be sharing as adults.
Well, it's an interesting look at this topic, and we've been talking a lot about it with all of these high-profile guys involved in this type of stuff. By the way, for more information, you can visit her website, LaurenMackler.com, and learn more about this and then the other things that Lauren's been involved with as well. Thank you, Lauren. We appreciate your time. We got to take a break. We'll continue in the Fox 25 Morning News.